suppose I'll start. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Inge Neft, and I'm a content developer at Zealed, and I'll be a moderator for this webinar. Today's topic is how to create social media content for your business. A quick run through of how this webinar will run. There are two ways that you can ask questions. The first is by posting a message in the chat mode or the question mode. If you don't feel like messaging everyone, you can message me or the speaker directly. Request to speak is you just press that button with the blue hand and that will let you speak again directly to us. If you arrive late to this webinar or if you missed anything important during it, don't worry, it's being recorded and a link will be emailed to all the attendees when it's finished. Today's speaker is Hannah Metz. She's the head of marketing at Zealed, and she's going to tell you all about lots of cool ways to do social media for your business. We also have a special offer today. It is a free online strategy session that you can use for your business. During it, you can talk about marketing, web development, and even social media strategy. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Hannah to tell you all about how to create social media content like a pro.
Welcome. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. The free strategy session that Inge just mentioned should be available on your screen now. There should be a button that says secure my spot. So please let me know if you have any issues seeing that. Before we get started, I also just want to make sure that the chat and Q&A mode works for everybody. So if you could go ahead and just send in a quick message just with your industry that you're in, just so we can make sure that works for everybody and everyone is able to ask questions. So again, that's just at the bottom right corner of your screen. You can send in a message either in chat or Q&A mode. It really doesn't matter where you send it in. We will get to your questions either way. But if you would like to just send in a quick message with your industry, so we can make sure everybody has access to that. Great. And then I also just wanted to briefly let you know that at the end of the session, we will be sharing with you our free templates for a social content calendar that we have put together based on the one that we use here at Zealed, and also 44 content ideas for your business, for your social media. So we will be sharing the downloads for that at the end of the webinar, so be sure to stay on until then. All right, well, before we get into the actual content creation part of this webinar, I just wanted to cover off really briefly why it's even important to have a social media strategy in place. Well, first of all, it's obviously crucial to understand your audience and so that you can develop a social media strategy that caters to that audience. So just really being aware of who your audience is and who you're talking to, and also which platforms they're on when they're online. All of those things you can find out through analytics on various different social media platforms. So having a good idea of who you're even trying to talk to is obviously crucial and the first step in creating a social media content strategy. You are also obviously able to establish a strong brand persona. So really having a strong strategy in place will allow you to be consistent and be on brand with the content you're sharing as well. Because if you don't have any strategy in place and you're kind of just going about it randomly, just uploading, whenever you have time, it's likely that you also don't really stay consistent with the content that you're creating. So being consistent and being on brand when it comes to brand voice, but also when it comes to the actual look of your designs and so on, fonts you're using, all across the board, is incredibly important. And so it's important to have a strategy in place and not just go about it randomly. And then also being aware of your content pillars, and I will touch on content pillars in a moment, but they allow you to diversify your content and bring content to the table that is interesting and keeps being interesting to your audience because it is diverse and you're not just talking about one thing the whole time. And yeah, so let's move on, and I'll jump right into actually planning the content and creating it, and also some tools that can be really useful for you. So let's talk about content pillars or content buckets, they're usually called. If you haven't heard of what this means, essentially it's different topics or different buckets that you can talk about on your social media. Now, as an example, for example, a retailer of baby clothing, obviously they would be talking about their products and showcasing their products, and that's obviously one of the content buckets or content pillars is promoting their products, talking about their products, anything related to their products. But it's important that we don't only talk about that and talk about other topics as well. So it's really about thinking outside of the box and thinking about what else can you talk about as the retailer of baby clothing. So for example, that could be tips for busy parents, how to stay organized, or it could be quick at-home workouts for busy parents. It could be DIY baby food recipes. There's really an endless list of ideas that could be things to talk about for a baby clothing brand. It's really all about thinking who is my audience. So in this case, it would be young parents, and what are they interested in beyond my product. So what else could I talk to them about that isn't necessarily about my product or service, but something else that brings value to them and that I can offer them, and a reason for them to stick around really on your social media. Now, I think it's important to take a few days each month just to kind of brainstorm and think about ideas. You can also do this throughout the month and just keep a document where you just, whenever you have an idea for content piece, you just go in and you quickly type it down. Or obviously you could just sit down and do a bit of research, have a look at some articles or any other places where you might find some inspiration. It really obviously depends on what your product or service is, but take your time to research, and whenever an idea comes up, just jot it down quickly, maybe in a Google Doc. So you kind of just have this list of ideas ready to go when it comes to actually creating the content. Now, it might also be worth looking at important dates, so holidays, special days. This again really heavily relies on what industry you're in. So different days will be relevant to different industries. There's obviously days that are kind of relevant to everybody, but you can have a look at important days, for example, on daysoftheyear.com. There's, days like as young as you feel day, and then obviously some more well-known and bigger days like National Coffee Day that might be relevant to you if you're in the coffee industry. So really, it just depends on your field and what is relevant to you, but you can utilize these days to create content around them. And that again could be, a way to create content that is a little bit more outside of the box. Now, if you are feeling stuck, it might also be a good idea to have a look at what your competitors are doing. I'm not obviously telling you to copy anything, but it can be good to come up with some new ideas, and also having a look at what the comments are saying on their content, or what people are asking, what questions are people asking. If people are asking questions on your social platforms, it's always a good idea to take that and create content around the questions, or just in general the questions that you get asked the most. That could be even a starting point for you. Write down all of the most commonly asked questions that you get within your business, and then take those questions and create content around those questions. So that obviously makes a lot of sense, because then you're answering or you're responding to a problem somebody has. You can also go to Answer the Public or AnswerSocrates.com. These are platforms that essentially show you what people are Googling or searching. So you could look within your field, within your industry, and find out what are people actually looking up online? What are they looking for? What questions are they asking in Google that relate back to your industry? So for example, if you were in digital marketing, you could look up digital marketing, and it would show you what questions people are asking in regards to that. What problems do they have within that field? Do they want to know more about SEO? Do they want to know more about Facebook ads? Do they not know how to create social content? So it really depends, obviously, again, on your industry, but it can be a really good insight into what people are actually looking up online. Okay, and now it actually comes around to the time where you want to create the content. Again, I think it is good to have some ideas written down before you get to the stage, so you don't arrive on the day where you're meant to be creating all of this content and you're like, well, I don't even know what to write down. I have no ideas. So it is good to have a bit of an action plan. This can just be, one sentence, or it could be a couple bullet points, whatever it may be, just kind of like a starting point for you. So I would recommend, really there's two ways you can go about it. You could write down all of your content in a Google document. You could also use the content calendar that we'll be giving out later in the webinar to kind of just plot out what your content will look like. Again, this is a good point to think about your content pillars. You don't want to be posting the same kind of content a week long. You want to be diverse and creating different content, but then also thinking about how you can post it so it's being published in an order that isn't, the same kind of content in a row. So plot it into your content calendar, write down all of the actual content and captions in a Google document. So I would recommend just doing a Google document per month. So you have all of the content for 1 month in a Google document, and it's easy for you or any team members to just access, make any changes, or leave comments if necessary. But then also have like a big picture overview in a content calendar. So this is a Google spreadsheet, so you'll just be able to download or make a copy of it later on when we share the link, and utilize it the way that makes sense for your business. And it's good to kind of keep the big picture of the month in mind, so you know what's coming up. And also, if anything needs to change, if there's something urgent that needs to be slotted in, if you need to move things around, then it's really good to have that overview of what's coming. And so within the Google Doc, I would recommend in the beginning, before you even start with any of the copywriting, just get clear on what sort of content you need to be creating. So again, refer back to your content pillars. What are your content pillars, and what kind of content and how much of that content do you need for each of the content pillars? So for example, this could be you need 10 posts that are educational content, then you need 5 that are promotional content, or you have any special offers coming up that you need some content around. Then you want to also have 10 customer stories or reviews or anything in that space, and so on. So get clear on what the actual content is that you need, how much of each type, and then get to actually the copywriting. Now, I want to do something a little bit different today, and actually show you how to really, really quickly and easily create designs in Canva. Now, I am a huge Canva fan. I think it is an incredible tool, and it makes creating content for social media incredibly easy. So I'm going to walk you through a really, really quick tutorial on how you can create content within minutes. Once you're kind of clear on what the topic of the content is, it's really easy to do. So within Canva, I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Here we go. Okay, so this is our Canva account. I'm just gonna walk you through like I said, a quick tutorial on how you can create social media content within minutes. So when you are in Canva, all you want to do is click on social media here. It will give you a lot of options for different things to design. But what you want to do is click on Quick Create here. Now, again, it will give you different options. So this really depends on where you, what content you want to create for which platform. So it could be Instagram, it could be Facebook, it could be LinkedIn. There's different options here, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to be creating an Instagram post as an example. Now, it comes up with lots of different design options here, but what you want to do is just type in whatever the main caption of your post will be. So for this example, we're going to just call it how to create social media content like a pro. And then you can also add a subheading if you want to. We're just going to leave it at this. Or maybe we make it a little bit shorter. We're just going to take this out. Okay, that looks good. And then you can add a logo if you want to. You do need the pro, the paid version to do so, but I don't necessarily think it's necessary to place your logo on every single social post. So we're just going to move on without that. Now it's time to choose which design you want to go with. So it's giving you a bunch of different options here. So geometric, organic, simple, elegant. What else do we have? Fun, modern. So there's really lots of different options to choose from. And again, this makes it super easy because you don't have to actually go ahead and create any of these. They're already made for you. So let's go with, which one should we go with? Let's go with this one, the first one. Okay, and then you are able to add your color palette. So Canva will automatically apply your color palette. So all you have to do is click on your color palette, and it will apply the color palette to your design. And you can click that again, and it will change the colors around until you're happy with it. So this really, it took us 2 minutes maybe to create. It's super quick and easy to do. Yeah, you just click finish, and that's saving your post for you, and there you are, and you just created a post within minutes. So let's go back. I'm going to turn off the screen share and go back to our presentation. There we go. Okay. Moving on. So when it comes to Canva, again, I couldn't recommend it more highly. If you are creating some video content, then I would also recommend InShot or CapCut. They are just apps for your phone that you can really easily just edit videos on. Video content is becoming more and more important, so I would recommend that you also look at creating some video content. Now, it might be a little bit intimidating, but just, I would say, keep it simple and keep it short. So don't try to cover off too much within one video. Just stick to one main point within your video and keep it short. So, about 30 seconds long, or up to 60 seconds, but definitely not longer than that. Obviously, again, it depends on which platforms you're on. If you are on Instagram and Facebook and or TikTok as well, then video plays a pretty big role on those platforms. If you're on LinkedIn, video still is important, but a little bit less. If you're on Pinterest, again, video is important, but not as much as on these other platforms. Now, I want to give you some more tips when it comes to actually creating the content, just some things to keep in mind. So one thing to be aware of is visual hierarchy. So this essentially talks about where somebody looks first when they see your design. And this is something really important to keep in mind, because you don't want to distract from your message. So whatever your message is within your design, you don't want them to look at something else first. You want them to look at the headline or what the offer, whatever the message is, the main takeaway from the post, that's what you want them to look at first. So let's look at this design here as an example. And the first point that somebody's attention will go to is where the number 1 is, so the top left corner. So that is also why, and you'll see in this next post here, it's important to left align your copy, your text. So ideally, if you would like to place your headline in the top left corner and align it left, because that's where people look first. That's where somebody's attention will go to immediately upon looking on an image. Now, that can be disturbed if there's something else within the image that snags their attention first. So you need to, again, just remember what should somebody be looking at very first. And then the second point somebody's attention will go to is where the number 2 is. So when you look at the headline here, so the free webinar title is something that we want to draw attention to. So that's why it's in a different color. And then the rest is kind of underneath. The third point where somebody's attention will go to is the top right corner. And then the fourth is the top left corner. The bottom left corner. So again, this is something to keep in mind with all of your designs that you create for your social media. And it is good to, not always, it really depends obviously on the layout. This is just a guideline really, but it is good to left align your text. Now, when it comes to fonts, again, I think it is important to stick to your branding, and that also includes your fonts. So it might be tempting to steer away from that a little bit on social media and use, crazy fonts or really bold fonts to try and catch attention. But obviously, fonts on social media need to be really easy to read. So if your brand font maybe is a little bit more like the bottom one here, perhaps you want to use a font for social media that is easier to read and doesn't make it complicated. So if somebody sees your design, if they don't immediately understand what the title is, that's already a bad sign. So you need to be able to capture somebody's attention and have them understand what your title says right away. Otherwise, you've lost their attention. And on social media, that happens very quickly. Now, also, talking about fonts, don't overdo it with different fonts. Again, I know it might be tempting because everything on social media tends to be quite bold and bright and colorful. So yeah, stick to your fonts that you use, 2 or 3 fonts on social media. Make sure they're easy to read, and don't overdo it with the fonts. Now, you also want to make sure if you have an image within your design that any text doesn't get overpowered by the image, so that any text that you have is really easy to read, and again, the image doesn't interfere with that. So as you can see here in the middle, there's an image, but it's very easy to read the text, and the image doesn't take away attention from the text. And then just in regards to branding, again, it is important to be consistent with your color scheme that is in line with your branding. So be consistent. Obviously, any company goes through changes every now and then when it comes to colors and so on, but it is important to stay consistent overall. Now, once you have created all of the content, you have your copy ready to go, you have your designs ready to go, you know when the posts should be going up. Now the time has come to actually schedule the content. Now there's a few different ways to do this. So if you are wanting to keep it low budget and you don't want to pay for a scheduling software, you can schedule Facebook and Instagram content within Facebook, and actually would recommend scheduling Facebook content directly in Facebook. Facebook doesn't like it that much when you use a third party to schedule content. So if you are present on Facebook, then you can do that directly within the Facebook Business Manager. You can schedule content in, and you can do the same for Instagram as well. The scheduling feature for Instagram on Facebook isn't as good as in maybe some paid scheduling tools. You can do a lot more within paid scheduling tools. But it still does the job. So if you're looking for a low budget option, then you can do that. Otherwise, some really good platforms are Later, Planoly, Loomly. There's really endless platforms, but I would probably recommend Later and Planoly. They're, I would say, my two favorites. And a planning software really just lets you take away some of the work for you and have it uploaded automatically. So all you have to do is just put in your content, put in your caption, put in your hashtags, and place it to whichever day where you want to upload it and at the time, and then that will be uploaded automatically. So from the moment you have put it in there, you can just let it be. Obviously, it's good to keep an eye on when things are going live so you can be present to answer any comments or messages. But it does take off a lot of the stress, and it saves a lot of time, especially if you have a lot else going on, which I'm sure you have. This can be really great, and they are pretty budget friendly as well. I think around $15 a month. Okay, now just in regards to some content ideas, and this really depends on what your desired outcome is. So if you would like to have people save your content, then sharing high value content is what you want to be doing. If somebody saves your content, it indicates that they found it so interesting or valuable that they want to come back to it later. So if you are wanting people to save your content, which you should be wanting because that's one of the most important metrics, then you should focus on sharing high value content. And I mean, you should be doing that either way. For the goal of having more likes, which I do think in general, saves and shares are probably more important metrics than likes and comments, because it's all about your content being so valuable that somebody either wants to save it for later or share it with a friend or a family member. So those two are arguably more powerful than likes and comments or interactions. But again, for getting more likes, it's good to share motivational or inspirational quotes or any sort of motivational content. For more comments, you should be asking your followers questions. So as you can see here on the right-hand side, that's a Facebook post example. Really easy. You can create this right in Facebook. This doesn't require Canva at all. And there's some design tools right within Facebook. And it's just a good tool to ask your followers and your audience some questions. And that's always a good idea anyways. I always encourage that a lot, because the more you get to know your audience, the better the content will be that you can create for them, because you know what they want to hear from you and you know the questions that they're asking. And then again, if you want more shares, it's always a good idea to post relatable content. So you could be sharing memes or any other sort of relatable content. Again, this kind of really relates on your industry and also your brand voice. So if your brand is more on the serious side, then maybe stay away from that. Now, I want to give you some actual some tips that you can apply right away after this webinar, some tangible tips that you can apply to your social content. So let's look at some ideas, some actual content ideas that you can apply. We have put together an example content calendar for the month of April. So this is just, it's 44 content ideas that you can be utilizing for your business. We have some service-based content and some product-based content. Don't worry about writing any of this down. We will be giving you the downloadable PDF version of this at the end of the webinar. Now, so let's have a look at some of these ideas. So for example, you could be sharing a common myth in your industry, and you could be debunking that. You could be doing that in a video form, so that's why it says reel here. You could be also sharing that as a carousel post. It really depends on what you prefer, but I do encourage you to create some video content if possible, seeing as that's just really big at the moment and it will continue to be big. When you plan out your content, one thing I didn't mention earlier, definitely also define what type of content it will be. So will it just be one image, or will it be a series of images? So that's called a carousel. Will it be a video? If so, for which platform? So will it be on Instagram Reels? Will it be on Facebook? Will it be on TikTok or somewhere else, on YouTube perhaps? If you want to create longer format videos. So just keep that in mind. Now, then again, you could be sharing, if you're a product-based company, you could be sharing 5 benefits that somebody can get from using your products. It's always good to start off videos with what we call a hook. So that could, for example, be, did you know? And then you share something that you find a valuable tip for your audience, or 5 reasons you should be, and then something else that you want to share. So these are just some of the ideas. Another idea could be 3 ways to, and then you could be adding a goal that your audience wants to achieve. You could also share, what else do we have on here? Ways your audience can use your product. So how do they actually apply it once they have it, and so on. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these now in detail, but we will be giving you the PDF version of them at the end of the webinar. And then I just want to also share some more carousel ideas besides video carousel. So again, this is a series of photos. It has become more relevant on Instagram and on Facebook as well. So here are some ideas of actual posts that you could be sharing. So for example, you could be doing a before and after post. You could be sharing a range of products. So not just one product. You could be doing a showcase of several products, which could look something like this on the right-hand side here. Then you also could be sharing some high-value content. This is one of our posts here on the left, where we shared free digital tools to help your business. This sort of content usually performs quite well because, again, it is high value and it's free value, which people love. You could also be sharing a highlight of a specific product, so it could show different angles, different features of the product, but focusing on one single product. Now, you can also utilize this feature to share a panorama. So if you have something larger to share that requires more space, you could be sharing that across several tiles. You can share an offer and all of the details of the offer. You can share your story. This here on the left is actually a great example because it draws in attention. It's quite intriguing. You definitely feel like you want to read more about it. So headlines like this on social media are definitely ones that perform quite well because at first glance it looks quite controversial. So people are intrigued and want to find out more. Then you could also be providing brand recommendations, or again, showing the benefits of your products or services. You could also be sharing user-generated content. So if you are selling products, you could be showcasing your customers wearing your products or utilizing your products in a slideshow. You could also use this feature to showcase customer reviews. And you could be sharing behind-the-scenes content as well. Cool. So I believe we have come to the questions section of the webinar. I'm just going to stop the presentation for a moment, and we will have a look at any questions that we are getting. So in regards to questions, just send them through. Again, it doesn't matter where you send them, either in the Q&A or in the chat, whatever you prefer, and we will get to them. So type in your questions now. Cool. And I think before we get into any questions, Inge, should we cover off perhaps some questions that we get a lot and that people ask us a lot?
Sounds good. So the first question we've got is, which social media platform should my business be on?
That's indeed one that we get asked all the time, and it is a good one. I would say in regards to which platform you should be on, the first step you need to understand is your audience, again, your target audience. So who is your target audience? What age range are they in? And then depending on their age range, which social media platform do they spend the most time on? So once you understand your target audience and what platform they spend the most time on, it becomes quite obvious which platform you should also spend your most time on. So if, for example, they are spending the most time on Instagram, then that's also where you should put in your most efforts. If it's Facebook, then that's where you should put your most efforts. If it's LinkedIn, that's where you should put your most efforts. I do recommend, though, ideally, if you are able to be present on at least 2 to 3 social platforms. Facebook and Instagram really, unfortunately, are kind of like a must in this day and age. But yeah, it's important to understand where your target audience spends their most time online, and then that's where you want to also spend the most time.
Yeah. So I've got a question from Telly. There's two. I'll start with the first one. How do you grow your follower account, and should I be advertising?
Yeah, so that's a great question. This, again, really depends on which platform. If you would mind to just send through which platforms you're currently on and where you're trying to grow your followers. But in general, I always say, and again, we get asked this a lot in regards to followers, but unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but it just is a fact that in this day and age, followers are actually not necessarily as important of a metric as engagement. So rather than focusing on the amount of followers you have, I think it's more important to focus on creating high value content and engaging with the audience you already have. But in saying that, I understand what you're saying. You want to increase your reach. You want to reach more people. So you just messaged Instagram and Facebook. So for Instagram and Facebook, especially, I guess both of them, creating Instagram and Facebook Reels can massively increase your reach. At the moment, this is being pushed incredibly by the algorithm. So if you are able to create video content and post that to Reels, you have the option to post it automatically also to Facebook, where that's being shared now as well. And because it's a new feature, Facebook or Instagram, which is the same thing, is pushing this out incredibly at the moment. So that's a really, really great way that doesn't cost anything to increase your reach and get to more people. So I would say try that first before you go to advertising. But if you do want to utilize advertising, again, I would recommend going about it with a video format as well. But I would give that, pushing out some Reels, give that a try first, because at the moment, the reach you can achieve with them is just incredible.
Yeah.
And please let me know if that answered your question. If not, I can talk about it some more.
We've got another question from Graham Knight, who says, our contemporary customers are all retiring. We suspect the up-and-coming customers will be millennials or digital natives. How do we figure out which platforms they will gravitate to?
Yeah, let me think about that for a moment. So in regards to millennials, I would say probably the platforms you would want to be on is Instagram and TikTok. I don't think Facebook is quite as relevant anymore. Facebook has become really a platform for the older generation, and I feel like a lot of the younger generations have moved over to TikTok and Instagram. Now, TikTok can be a little bit intimidating, especially if you aren't quite familiar with it, but it is really all about video content. So maybe start out with creating some more video content on Instagram, because again, that's being pushed massively at the moment, and there's a lot of potential for increasing your reach with that. So I would definitely say Instagram would be a place to be. And otherwise also TikTok if you can. Let me know if that answered your question, and also maybe send through some information about the types of products or services you're selling, because that obviously has an impact as well. It could be that maybe Pinterest could be a good place for you, but again, that depends on what it is you're selling. Cool.
Yep, we've got another question from Janice. She asks, do we post same content across all platforms at one time, or do post on different contents to keep it interesting? I'm not sure.
So in regards to that, I would say yes, you post the same content across all platforms at the same time, but you need to be aware that each platform requires different dimensions for your content. So again, Canva is a fantastic place for this, because you can very easily resize the same design so it's then in the perfect dimensions for whichever platform. So you can start out with just creating your content, and then once it's done, you can very easily resize it so it's in the perfect dimensions for Instagram, for Facebook, for Pinterest, wherever it may be. But yes, it's fine to share the same content across different platforms, but also maybe keep in mind, maybe you want to utilize video features as well. So you might be sharing the same content, but in different formats. So one might be a carousel post, or one might be a static, and one might be a video. So that's a way to diversify, but still share the same content and save yourself some time, because you don't have to create content on end that is constantly different. So I think that's a way to easily burn yourself out if you try to constantly be present, but also share different types of content across different platforms. So don't worry too much about sharing the same content. That's totally fine, because again, you are probably also reaching different people on different platforms, depending on, again, what your target audience is. But it is fine to share the same content across different platforms.
I think I missed an earlier question from Tally. They asked, I use the free version of Planoly. What are the benefits of the paid version?
So with Planoly, on the free version, there's a limit to the amount of posts that you can publish or upload per month. I don't know exactly what the limit is at the moment, but it just depends on the frequency that you post. So if you don't post that much, the free version should probably be fine for you. I would recommend to post at least 3 times a week, if not 4, on Facebook and Instagram, because I think it is good to show a constant presence to your following. So obviously depends on how often you are sharing content, but I do think that if you have limited time for content creation, then definitely focus on creating value over quantity. So quality over quantity. So yeah, I think that is one of the main features. You also don't have access to analytics, which can be really useful to have insights in. On Instagram, for example, the analytics are limited to, I believe, 3 months. But on Planoly, you can go back as far as a year. So that can be really useful. Then there's also different functions. For example, I think you are able to automatically post a first comment. So that can help with engagement. So that's on the paid version. And I believe you can also upload video content as well, so like Instagram Reels and other video content on the paid version as well. So there are quite a few differences, but it really just depends on what your needs are currently.
Yeah. Another question we get asked the most is, I have limited time. Is it okay to only be on one social media platform?
Yeah, so that kind of follows up what I just said, and I definitely think it is fine to only be on one platform. Just be sure that the one platform you're on is also the platform where your audience spends the most time. So whichever platform that is, if you only have time for one, that's fine. Just be sure that that's where your audience also spends the most time, and then take all of your energy and put it into that one platform. I'd rather you do that than be on 3 or 4 platforms and do them a little bit each, but not really giving it your all. So I would say if you are only able to do one platform, that's fine, but then really put in some effort on that platform.
And a final question that we get asked the most is, what else can I do to make creating content less overwhelming for my business?
Yeah, so I would say definitely follow the steps that we have talked about earlier in regards to breaking it down into the 3 steps of brainstorming, planning, and then actually creating, and then actually scheduling it in. But I also think it can be really good to ask your followers for ideas. If you are fresh out of ideas and you don't know what else you can be talking about, just really ask your following and get some ideas from them. Or, as I said earlier, think about the most commonly asked questions you get within your business, even if it's not on social media, and then address those on social media. And I also think just in general, don't let it be overwhelming. It really can be very straightforward and quick and easy to do, as I just showed with, for example, creating designs in Canva. You don't have to be overwhelmed by it. It can be a very quick and seamless process. And that to be able to do that, you need the right tools, which again, some of the tools I talked through, but also having a content calendar template that you can use. So we'll share the one we have with you later, and having a strategy in place. Because if you don't have a strategy in place, that's when you'll start to feel stressed. I also just saw there's another question from Amber, who had a question in regards to the Canva tutorial. I'm just going to read through that quickly. So the first step, Amber, I'm just going to share with you again, was in Canva. There's a, I can just share my screen quickly and show you again. Here we go. So in Canva, you have all of these options up here with different things to do, essentially. So the first step is just clicking on social media, then it will give you again a bunch of options, and then that's where you want to click on quick create, and that's where you can create the designs really quickly and easily. But we are also recording the session, so you will be sent that by email if you would like to watch back.
Yeah. Got another question from Jake Hickmott. How often do you recommend you should update on social media? Daily, weekly, or monthly?
Sorry, Jake, would you be able to just clarify what you mean by update? So do you mean share content on social media, or do you mean perhaps being on stories and showing your face and kind of talking directly to your audience and showing the behind the scenes of your company? Just maybe if you could clarify what exactly you mean by that, and then we can address that in a bit more detail. Okay, I'm just going to go through and see if we have any other questions. That doesn't look like it. If there's any other questions, feel free to send them into the chat now. Otherwise, we will wrap it up after Jake's question. So he just responded and said, content on social media and updates of what has been happening in the business. So again, this really depends on your capacity. Ideally, I would say you should be posting, at least 4 times a week, if not every day. Every day would be ideal. But again, for a lot of people, and especially business owners, this isn't viable because you have a lot else going on, and I'm aware of that. So it really just depends on what is a amount that you can manage without compromising the quality of your content. So keeping that in mind just as much as you can with whilst you're still sharing valuable, high value content. And then in regards to updates of what has been happening in the business. So a really great way to do this is through either Instagram or Facebook stories, because it provides a really great insight into your company, and it also makes your company more relatable and shows the human element of your company. So that way your followers will feel more connected to you, that's what it's all about on social media, is connection. So if you are able, and this takes no time at all, just to film some little videos throughout the day of some behind the scenes content, or if there's anything exciting happening, if there's any updates within your business, or for example, if there's new products or new services that you're launching, to show that process, because that is something exciting to watch for anyone who follows along and follows your business on social media. And it also takes away that invisible barrier between you and your audience a little bit more, and just shows the faces behind the company. Let me know if that answered your question.
Yeah. Got another question from Lynn. Some of my market is older generation. Do you recommend a platform to reach these people, or use many?
Yeah. So in regards to that, I would say definitely Facebook is a great place to be. And depending on your industry, perhaps also LinkedIn. So I'm not sure what industry you're in, but if you are either in B2B or you're offering services, then LinkedIn might be a good place to be, but definitely Facebook. And so on Facebook as well, there's a ton of Facebook groups for all different kinds of things. There's pretty much a Facebook group for anything you can think of. There's also pages for pretty much anything you can think of. So I think finding those places on Facebook where perhaps your target audience is present, and then a lot of times in groups you're not allowed to post any promotional content, but you might be able to approach the admins of the group, and sometimes you can either pay a small fee or you can offer something for free, and the admin will be happy for you to share that in their group. So it's really all about finding where on Facebook is your target audience spending time. Groups are huge, pages are huge on Facebook. So there's a big chance that your target audience is within one of those spaces, and you might be able to reach them through that. Great, I believe we have another question. Oh no, that was just some feedback. Thank you, Yolanda. We're happy to hear it. Okay, well, it looks like there's no more questions, so let's move on to the free downloads that we have ready for you guys.
Yep. Cool, I'm just changing to, yep. All right, so this is the last chance to sign up for the free online strategy session, since we'll be sharing another offer soon. Just leave that for a little second.
And this is really a great opportunity for you to talk to one of our senior digital business strategists. Again, this can be about anything in the digital space relating to your business, so not just about social media. This could be about SEO, this could be about website efficiency, this could be about e-commerce, whatever it may be. It's a free opportunity for you to gain some more insights into areas in your business that you could be improving.
Cool. And the other offer we have for you today is the free social media content calendar. You should be seeing it now.
Please let us know if you aren't able to see that, but there should be a little pop-up now with the calendar and a button that says download now. When you get into the spreadsheet, just create a copy so that you can create your own version of that template. You should also see a file download for the 44 content ideas that I showed earlier. Again, let us know if you have any issues at all accessing these resources. We are also able to send them to you via email if you can't download them.
Cool. So our next webinar is on April 6th, 2022, and it's all about getting your digital marketing for the next financial year sorted out. And what was it? You can also see our past webinars in our online webinar library. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Bye.